the combination of sailing and hiking in the Faroe Islands is the best way to get to know these islands, since all the culture, history, and traditions are connected with its wild nature. It has this kind of something magical in the air when you are in the Faroe Islands. Hi everyone, my name is Alberto. Today we are going to be talking about the wild Faroe Islands, what a lot of people consider to be one of the last remote and isolated places in the world. I belong to Amarok Adventures, it's my own adventure travel agency here in Iceland, with my partner Monica, and we are both mountain and glacier guides belonging to the Association of Icelandic Mountain Guides. We have been working for the last 10 years in this field, and we have been guiding not only in Iceland, but also in other destinations as Nepal and the Faroe Islands. Well, today we are going to be covering some stuff like, for example, the highlights of the Faroe Islands as the epic hiking that we can find in here, bird life or the Faroese culture. Then we will move forward to a quick review of the hiking and sailing trip. That is the one that I'm going to be presenting today. Then we will connect with Frank, who is the leader of a skipper's team in charge of the Nordic, the Northern Light sailboat. And after that, we will talk a bit about the logistics of an adventure like this with real pictures from our travelers from 2019 before the pandemic. That was the last time we managed to do this. And finally, we will have a bit of time for you to ask questions about the Faroes, the trip, the sailboat, about anything you might have in mind. So, what are the Faroes known for? Well, Faroe Islands are located in the North Atlantic Ocean, as you can see in here, and they are just between Iceland and the Scottish coasts. So just on the red dot in here, in the middle. They are just 500 kilometers away from the Arctic Circle, and they are a group of 779 islands, islets, and reef. But from there, just 18 islands are the main ones, and of course, just 17 of them have population. Just one island has no people living on them. So just to give you an approximate idea of the size, so from east to west of the islands of the archipelago, there are just 70 kilometers. And from the northern island to the southern one, there's just about 110 kilometers long. So yeah, actually they are not so big. For me, as I'm coming from a bit bigger island, I would say, like Iceland, I can say that for me, they have the perfect size because they are not so small, but not so big. And they have the perfect size for not getting bored, for be able to hike for several days. Yeah, when talking about these landscapes, we love to say that the Faroe Islands are like mountains planted in the ocean, as you can see in here. The Faroe Islands have this kind of mega huge basalt cliffs, and some of them are one of the highest ones in the world. And when people ask us if the Faroes look like Iceland in some way, we can certainly say that they did, but around 60 millions of years ago. So the Faroes actually were on the past a plateau full of trees, just belonging to Greenland. Now they look like this, so it's kind of different. Well, in the Faroe Islands, we have this amazing and impressive trails like this one. We can walk between mountains and across the steep fjords. Even if the day is clear, we can see the Vatnajökull glacier here in Iceland that is just about 400 kilometers away. Just what I would say about the special thing about hiking in the Faroe Islands is that you would need to have this kind of special and close connection to locals to get to know some of the off-the-beaten trails. As, for example, I did with Frank and with Ota from Go Local in Mykines Island, and they shown us a lot of places that normally people doesn't know. It is still quite difficult or quite hard to find specific information about some areas in the Faroe Islands. It's of course, the kingdom of the puffins, and along with the oyster catchers, that it's a completely different bird, and the gannes, that is this one. We can say that in the Faroe Islands, they coexist about 275 different species of birds, and it's the perfect habitat for them. And of course, as the name of the island says, we will find hundreds of roaming free sheep everywhere in the Faroes. And I would say that they are kind of an essential part of the Faroese landscape and also of the culture, being a population that almost doubles the number of the inhabitants in the island. Just to give you a quick idea, the Faroes have 50,000 inhabitants. The sheep are about, last time I counted all of them, no, just kidding. The last time we were in the Faroes, they were like 70,000, I think, Frank, more or less. I do not remember that was the exact number, but more or less. They almost double the size of the population in the Faroe Islands. And talking about the Faroese people, even they do belong to Denmark. The Faroese people have their own language, that is the Faroese, that is kind of similar, as we said at the beginning of this chat, to the Icelandic, but still we have two completely different languages. They have their own culture and traditions, as well as they have their own political system. They are small in the ocean, but they have this very strong national identity. That is something that I share with them living here in Iceland. Yeah, we can also enjoy the Faroese gastronomy, whose ingredients are collected directly from its pure, intact, and brutal nature, like this. Yeah, normally the gastronomy in the Faroe Islands is based on the fish, of course, and the seafood, and then lamb, the seaweed, and the sheep ham. Well, at the end, in my humble or our humble opinion, the combination of sailing and hiking in the Faroe Islands is the best way to get to know these islands, since all the culture, history, and traditions are connected with its wild nature. I also like to say, now that I'm just taking a look to this image, that the Faroe Islands smells like grass and salt. It has this kind of something magical in the air when you are in the Faroe Islands. Anywhere where you are, you can feel the force of the sea at its best in here. So it's kind of a special, magical, and completely different place that we all have seen for sure. So talking about the itinerary, we are going to be talking today about an 8 days hiking and sailing trip in the Faroe Islands. I've just marked it in the map the islands that we are visiting during the trip. A few years ago, after our first trip to the Faroe Islands, a question came to our mind. Would it be possible to discover what we just discovered by car and by foot, but mixing the hiking philosophy that we have in Amarok Adventures with the ocean connection of the Faroese culture? And we managed to get in touch with one of the owners of the Nordic, and we met him actually when he came to Iceland a few years ago. There we were, sitting on a small bar in downtown Reykjavik with a huge map of the Faroe Islands on top of the table and a couple of beers, and trying to define this possible route, what to do, what to visit, is it possible to sail in here, is it possible to stop the ship in this fjord? And after the day, we started in working on a possible itinerary, and he put us actually in contact with Frank. That was the key piece of making this adventure possible. Yeah, so after that we created a totally unique trip, and there's nothing like this in the Faroe Islands as far as I know, and an 8-day trip mixing hiking and sailing in this wild nature is something I would say completely out of whatever you have seen until now, for sure. But talking about this trip day by day, normally, unless you arrive by ferry, you arrive to the island of Vuga with the flights. Okay, so we normally start our trip in the island of Vuga, unless you are coming by ferry. And the people that we know actually live in Vuga. We have this special connection and friendship with them because they are a couple. They consider this island to be the most beautiful of all of them. That I will let you be the judge on this. I do not want to influence you. So the first day hiking on this island, we hike all the way around the famous hanging lake. That is the one that you are seeing here in the picture, until we arrive to Trælanipan. That is the slave cliff, where the disobedient slaves were pushed off the mountain straight to their death. The walking path is super easy. It's the first day. Normally we take this day quite easy and slow, and it just takes you to one place that it's fantastic, that where you can get a view of the lake from a particular angle, actually, that makes you see this lake like is hovering directly above the ocean. So it's something that it has this kind of magical atmosphere that if you put yourself in one place and your camera, you can get the view of this lake just above the ocean, and it's magical if the day is good, of course. After this, we will head to the small village of Bur, that is this one, and from here we start hiking the old Postman Trail. Bur, as you are gonna hear today on this webinar, is one of the most beautiful villages in the islands, because for me, all the small villages in the Faroe Islands are just amazing, are just beautiful. Bur has just a few colorful houses around the church, and some of them has this kind of turf and grass on the top, and it has this something that makes you wonder how it would be to live in here in the old times. Just at the end of a fjord with a Tinholmer islet on the end. That is this one that you can see around here that some people call the crocodile. And from here we start hiking through the historic Postman Trail along the west coast of the island of Uga. We are gonna get some epic views during the trail until we arrive to what used to be one of the most isolated villages of the Faroe Islands. And when I say it used to be until 2004. That it's something that some people, they say, what? Until 2004, this is completely impossible. That nowadays there are tunnels everywhere, there are roads everywhere. Well, not in here. Before that, the people from the village used to hike over the mountain to reach the outside world. That's kind of insane. I mean, the postman also used to hike this route 3 times per week to deliver and pick up the postmail. The trail itself is 2.5 hours, and once there, we will arrive to one of the most famous spots that is called Myllefossa. That is this waterfall just flowing from the mountains across the town and falling directly into the sea. And as we arrive there during late in the evening, we have the chance of enjoying this waterfall without almost tourists. So it's kind of magical again, because normally this place has a lot of people just taking pictures, and a lot of people nowadays are flying drones, and so when we arrive late in the evening, it's completely different. And after this, we normally head to have a local dinner in Kausadalsgarður. It's a small restaurant in this town that is called Kausadal, and is used for having the ship during the autumn. It turns directly into a restaurant the rest of the year. So it has also this kind of magical and atmosphere, I would say. I don't know, everything, as I told you many times, but everything is magical here in the Faroe Islands. The following day, we are going to Mykines Island, that is this one, the yellow one, just on the west of Uga, as you can see it on the map. And we start early in the morning by taking the ferry for arriving to Mykines. This island is located it's not a long sail till there. I would say it's 45 minutes. Well, it would depend on the conditions on the sea, of course. But just to give you an idea of the size, it's just 10 kilometers long, 3 kilometers wide. And it's a true treasure in the Faroe Islands. Depending on the season, of course, we have the ferry, or we have not the ferry. And of course, in the winter season, it's everywhere is icy and kind of tempestuous world. Or in the summertime, it can be like a heaven island surrounded by bright green meadows and the unique opportunity, of course, to see the puffin bird. That is the one that you can see on the right picture. And on the left picture, you can see how Mykines is during the summertime. Once in Mykines, we will join Otta from Go Local. That is a local Mykines guide. If you're planning going to the Faroe Islands by yourself, I definitely encourage to get in touch with her. She's amazing. And she has been recently awarded with one of the top sustainable tourism and community immersion destinations from Lonely Planet this last year. And we were so happy for her when we heard this. So with her, we will hike up to Knukkur, avoiding the most common trails for tourists and getting some of the best views of the Faroe Islands. The hike is about 4 to 5 hours, depending on the rhythm of the group, to the top and back. And in the evening, normally we take the ferry back to Wu Island for spending the night. And the following day, the big moment arrives. We jump into the Norðurljósið, the Northern Light sailboat, We change our cozy and local accommodation on land to this expedition sailboat that will be our home and transportation for the following days. We start early in the morning towards the cliff of Ua. We start sailing, and we arrive to a small bay called Saxon, that is this one, that is located on the Streymoy Island. We will reach the beach of Saxon with a small dinghy boat. You will see the pictures of the dinghy boat later. From there, we will start hiking near this lagoon until we arrive to the farmhouses. In this place, as far as I know, there's just 14 people living. From Saxon village, we start our hike to Chotnuvik through a small path across the mountain, and we will take a small detour for getting one of the most impressive and less known views of the Faroes. First of all, this is Monica hiking up from Saxon to Chotnuvik, and this is the landscape I was talking to you about. It's called mythical. It's an amazing place. From here, we will descend the mountain. I don't know if you can see the small person in here. There's one hiker over there. So from here, we will descend the mountain through the valley, passing nearby one of the last shepherd huts in the island, before heading to one of the most famous and beautiful surfing beaches that we can find in the Faroe Islands, of course, that has become really popular these last years around the world. That is, of course, Chotnuvik. And here we will be picked up by the dinghy boat and we will embark the sailboat. And the following day, we will wake up in the coastal town of Øya and we will start hiking early in the morning for hiking up what some people call the Faroe Alps. That is this. The main goal for today actually would be hiking to the top of Itinerary, the highest peak on the Faroe Islands. That it's about, if I'm not mistaken, it's 880 meters tall. During the winter time, this mountain is an icy peak. During the summer, it's a beautiful but hard hike, only done by a few. And once on the top, if the day is clear, is the place where I was telling you before that it is possible to see the Vatnajökull glacier on a super clear day, of course, in the distance. That is the glacier just 400 kilometers away here in Iceland. Normally, people, when we arrive to the top, they say, is this enough? No, of course not. We have something else. From here, we will descend through an unknown path that connects the peak with the scenical village of Jegf. That is this one that, as I said before, I literally can't stop saying that the Faroe villages are charming. But Jegf, it has something, you know, it's the old timber walled houses and the turf roof cottages everywhere in this small village. And apart from that, a 2 meters long sea-filled gorge that is actually a natural harbor. It's something completely amazing. And I really think that every place in the Faroe Islands is completely special, as I'm going to say all along the presentation, but this place is just outstanding, really. And once there, we will return to our expedition sailboat for a lovely evening on board after this day that actually is the longest day of hiking of the trip. And well, day 6, here we are almost finished. One of the most scenical places is this island that is called Kalsoy. That might be, in my opinion, also one of the most mystical islands of all of them. Is this one, this yellow one that you can see in here. The name of the islands mean Man Island, and it's nicknamed the Flute because of this form that the island has. It's 18 kilometers long, 2 kilometers wide. It's kind of special in comparison with other islands because, what do you think? Because there's almost, as you can see, no flat places in the island. So it's hard to find any flat ground, and everything is really exposed to the elements in here. But it is possible to find 4 main villages. And this is because even the conditions were super hard in the past. The farmers found one of the best and fertile soils in the whole archipelago. If the weather is good enough, we will try to disembark in the small village of Mykines, that is this one, where the Kopagonan is located, that is this statue. And the Kopagonen is a woman statue of a mythological Selkie. So she's a being. I don't know if you can appreciate this on the picture, but she's carrying a skin. This is a seal skin. So she's a being that lives as a seal in the ocean, but sheds her seal skin once she's on land. And from here, we start hiking towards the Kalsøy mountain until we arrive at the small town of Tröllanes that has tight links with the troll legends. And after a super quick visit of the village, we start this, what we can say that is one of the most famous hikes, not only in the island, but also in the Faroe Islands. I do believe as a photographer that this place has one of the best views of the Faroe Islands. The path, as you can see, is steep, and with bad conditions, it can be even risky. But that's why always it's important when hiking here to be accompanied by an experienced guide. After this fantastic hike, after getting this amazing views of Kalsøy Island, we will descend. We will return to the sailboat, and depending on the conditions, we might sail to another village that is on the opposite side of the fjord that is called Klaksvík. But I mean, just look at these pictures. It's fantastic. I mean, it is not easy to get a really good weather in here, but when you get this weather, it's like, oh my God, what is this? And it's truly fantastic. We're gonna start sailing south from here. We are gonna start sailing south from here, where my mouse is, to this yellow island in here. So we will start sailing south to the island of Nordsøy, where we will hike from one side of the island to the opposite one before heading back to Tórshavn, the capital of the Faroe Islands. Yeah, so we will start sailing back, and on the way back, if the weather is good enough, we will stop for fishing, and we will have our fresh meal on board that day. Okay, and once in Tórshavn, day sailing, we will disembark, and we will head to the hotel for that night. That actually will be really near to the harbor and really close to the Mykines Peninsula, the historical core of the capital city. And after a free afternoon in the city, if we have enough time for doing this, we always like to meet again for having dinner all together in a local restaurant just for the last night. That I think is something good for just sitting all together, sharing the food, talking about the histories and the stories of the trip and all the experiences that we had these days. The following day, well, this would be Mykines, and the following day, we take the local bus from Tórshavn to the airport and we fly back home. And that would be everything about the trip. I will leave you now with Frank.
Well, I was going to tell you a bit about the Norløse. What is the Norløse? It's a fishing vessel. It was built for the Faroese fishing industry, and it was finished. It was delivered to its owners on the 5th of May 1945. So it's a very special ship. It started when the Second World War ended. That's an easy date to remember. The Norløse is a lucky ship, of course, with that birthday. It has to be a lucky ship. During its 39 years as a fishing vessel on the Faroe Islands, it was a trailblazer in a very crucial time on the Faroe Islands. We had bad fishing, and there was no bait for fishing. We were fishing with hooks, and there was no real bait for fishing, so the fishing was bad. And then the skipper of Norløse thought that he had to do something. So he found some nets, and he went out fishing with these nets and tried to fish for herring, just to use it for bait. But then they found out that there was so much herring that it was basis for a whole industry. So they just hurried back for some more nets. In fact, the herring fishery was crucial for the Faroe Islanders in the 50s and the 60s. It was our main industry. And this little boat was the trailblazer. We used to say that the Norløse started the Faroese gold rush. Then after these 39 years, hard work as a fishing vessel, you can see on the small picture that the Norløse was quite tired and spent after all these years, and it was not so much in use anymore. And the Faroese artist, Trønder Patterson, fell in love with the ship at the harbor, and he asked the owner to sell the ship to him because he wanted to rebuild it for this fantastic image he has drawn here on the original drawing. He even changed the sails because these sails are more beautiful and they are also easier to handle for fewer crew. And it took a long time because Norlucy is a hard ship to let go. But then the owner died, and his son delivered an envelope to the artist Trond Pedersen. And in the envelope, there was a letter from his father telling him that if he paid for the harbor use of the ship, then the ship was his. So he was a lucky owner of Norlucy. And after 7 years of hard work, where every man in Tórshavn that had some money or was able to do something physical to on board the ship was involved. After 7 years, this wonderful ship was a reality. It went into tourist industry quite fast. I think it was in the start of the 19th that it went into tourist industry and was very, very popular for the locals and for the visitors of the Faroe Islands, with good skipper and a lot of nice trips around the Faroe Islands. It's a special feeling to sail on a sailboat, and the seas on the Faroe Islands are demanding a real ship to enjoy them. The Norlucy has got some tender love and care again now in 2020. We had it on dry land, and we have made some repairs and maintenance work. And we also upgraded the facilities on board to make it an even better ship for these multi-day trips like Amarok is doing now. And I can promise you that you will not be disappointed. We have the principle that this is an old ship and we have to respect the soul of the ship. So the improvements are felt, not seen. This is a bit of bragging about the Faroe Islands. It's not easy to sail on the Faroe Islands. And these maps you see here, these are the papers we use every day for sailing on the Faroe Islands. There are 12 maps telling us how the currents are looking, where the danger areas are. And as you can see on the maps, they are with 1 hour intervals, that everything changes. And we have to know when does this circle start and when does it end. How strong is the current? Where is the wind? How strong is the wind? Where is it blowing? How big are the waves? And are the waves the same way as the wind? And so on and so on. Everything is crucial to sail the ship in a safe and comfortable manner. Our captain, Rasmussen, who sails the ship, he used to, when the tourists ask him, could we be there a bit faster maybe when we are sailing from one place to another? And he uses to answer, it depends on how rough sailing you are able to take. Because everything is possible, but it can be a bit uncomfortable if you don't respect these rules of sailing. But all the skippers are educated in this, and sailing the right way and at the right time and at the right pace is what they do. So there's no need to worry. The Faroese kind of hospitality is called gestablutni, and it can be translated into guest kindness. We like that our guests are comfortable and happy. The smiling person here to your right, that is Captain Rasmussen. He has left the wheelhouse for a minute to take care of some of our guests with some panna cotta and coffee. That is considered a normal thing on Norlucy, to take care of the guests in between. You can also expect some storytelling. This picture I'm very proud of. This is me in one of the best moments of my life. It was the first time I explained something to a passenger of Norlucy. I was just started. It is fantastic to be able to convey what you know about a mystical island like Faroe Islands, and people are very interested because it's an interesting story. But you can also expect some more tall tales, like we call them. We love to tell stories, and we can make them long if we want to, and short if we want to. And we have a tradition of storytelling, so you can expect some nice long stories about the things you are asking about. Even our national dance, the Faroese dance, is accompanied by a long story about Vikings. I will leave you now and hope to see you aboard.
Talking about logistics in an adventure like this, for getting to the Faroe Islands, you can do this through two different ways: by flight or by ferry. But since getting here by ferry, it's a really long trip, I'm gonna stick to how to get here by plane. Just to be fair, there are not so many options of direct flights to the Faroe Islands, and the most common one is coming through Copenhagen in Denmark. In my case, coming from Iceland, I fly directly from Keflavik Airport, that is the international airport here in Iceland. But you could also use other common European airports, such London or Barcelona. The reason why there are just few options is because until now, the Faroe Islands haven't been a major tourist destinations. And since getting here, it's a bit complicated for some people. It's still kind of a pristine or magical place to travel to. Vuga Airport is located just about 50 kilometers away from the capital, from Tórshavn. Yeah, just to recapitulate about this, at the end, if you're coming, for example, from North America, or if you're coming from any European countries, I think that the easiest way to travel to the Faroe Islands would be hopping onto one of the multiple daily flights from Copenhagen to Vuga Airport. Life on board the expedition sailboat is quite different to what many people have in mind when talking about sailing some islands. Every morning and every evening, we take the dinky boat, that would be this one or a different one, for getting close to the coast and for returning to the sailboat after the whole hiking day. And then this kind of magic happens. So as you can see in the picture that I'm going to say to show you now, the people are having a really terrible time aboard every time that we are sailing in the Faroe Islands. So just look at their faces. They are so stressed. They are so sad because they are missing their homeland. No, just kidding. So aboard the Nordic, we try the relation between the travelers and the guide and the crew to be the closest as possible, because at the end, as you can see in here, we are going to be sharing the facilities inside the sailboat during 3 nights and 4 days. That means living together, eating together, sleeping not together, but in the same area together, and sharing the space, not just between the group, but also with the crew. So at the end, we need to have this kind of group spirit or family spirit, whatever you prefer to understand it. And after every dinner, we talk about the following day, the media conditions, we check the map, what to wear. At the end, over everything, we try the traveler to live a totally unique experience, completely different to whatever else they can do in the islands. And so you can see here, famous Okaran Norluse here, and the people having a wonderful time inside. Not bad time, of course, a really good one inside the sailboat. And yes, the famous frequently asked questions. Do I need to be an extreme hiker for coming to the trip? Not necessary. You need to have an active life. You need to enjoy hiking. And I would say that if you have vertigo, you will have to keep your cool, because since in the Faroe Islands, the wind can move mountains, the vertigo feeling increases. But since you will be traveling with an experienced guide and mountain guide, there is nothing you should worry about when traveling with us to the Faroe Islands. Some people say, might 1 week on a boat be too much for me? At the end, it's not whole week inside the boat. Is just 4 days and 3 nights. So at the end is not so much time on the boat. The rest of the time we are using on-land accommodation. And do I need any technical mountain gear? Absolutely not. But as I always say, when people ask about this, make sure not to brand new mountain boots, please, because it's a mistake that everyone does when coming to the Faroe Islands. Before the trip, they buy new boots for hiking, and then the feet are completely destroyed. So it's really good that if you are gonna buy some new gear, use it before coming to the trip. And is there a plan B if we cannot hike because of the weather? Always. This is something that it's one of the main concerns of the people coming to the Faroe Islands with us. Of course, always, if we cannot hike on a specific trail one day, we always have a plan B for that day, a shorter hike or even a detour. For example, the day when we connect Aia with Jeff through the highest peak of the Faroe Islands, if the day is not good, we have planned to take a path to a place called Rising of Kettlingen, the Giant and the Witch, where we can see the spectacular sea stag. So if we are not doing the main hike, we are going to do something that it's exactly the same level of awesome. I mean, you can find a lot of beautiful and super nice places in the Faroe Islands. If there's a plan B, no worries, because you are going to be completely amazing. As Frank always says, the Faroe Islands are the land of maybe, and here more than in any other place, we need to follow the instructions and the advice of the captain. And of course, not only from the captain, also from the crew of the sailboat of the Nordlyse. During the summer, we might have pleasant weather around 30 Celsius to 15 Celsius, more or less, but this can change at any moment. And it happens also here in Iceland. And we like to say that in one day you can have the 4 seasons. So it is necessary to have the correct gear, of course, but also to listen to the advices of the crew and the guide. Talking about gear, what do we need to carry during this adventure? So you all know, or you normally know, how to dress by layers. If not, you can ask me anytime. Just keep in mind what I just told you about the 4 seasons on the same day. So it's super important to have warm clothes, even if it's summer. Also, I do recommend that despite the guides, we always have a first aid kit. Of course, the knowledge for using this first aid kit, I do encourage you to have your own in case you have some special medicines or similar. Apart from that, sleeping bag for the nights, hiking poles, the water bottle, what else? Mountain boots, of course, as I said before, and the camera are essential in this trip. But most important is to be what? Minimalist. So this is super important. I'm never getting tired of saying that it's super important to be minimalist when coming to a trip like this, because your main luggage is going to stay in the sailboat, and it's important just to carry only the things that we are really going to need. So forget about that super interesting novel that you are reading at the moment and just enjoy the landscape and enjoy the views and enjoy chatting with other people, because it's going to be an amazing experience, definitely. And just for ending my part, I wanted to share you some shots from our ex-travelers before the COVID pandemic during 2019, the last year we were in the Faroe Islands. This is a German couple in 2019 enjoying with the rest of the group one of the hikes that we did on the island of Kalsoy. If you're a solo traveler, there's no problem joining one of our groups, as Andrea did, because at the end I'm living this adventure day by day with the whole group and talking to the people inside the sailboat or just hiking with them. A complete group of strangers, like in this picture, can come together and create a strong ties between each other. And this is fantastic. I mean, the relationships that normally are made during this kind of trips are awesome. It's just fantastic. Just coming to the adventure dates and prices. So the trip duration is 8 days. We normally depart on Tuesday, so June 1st, June 8th, June 15th, June 22nd, and June 29th. That will be the day that you're arriving to Vuga Airport. Okay, we will pick you up there, unless you are coming, as I said before, by ferry, or you are coming a few days before for exploring by yourself different parts of the islands. We can just meet at Vuga Airport. There's no problem. Or even on the accommodation for that night. The group size of this trip, it's between 7, that would be the minimum, to 12, that would be the maximum. And all that text that you have on the right is what it's included. So an expedition sailboat, a mountain guide from Amarok Adventures, all the meals, all the accommodations, a lot of stuff. You can just see it on the PDF that we have about this trip, and on the 57 Hours website that they have the whole information about this. About the price, that it's something important that some people always want to know, of course. Price of this trip, it's $4,150, would be translated to euros to 3,400. Yeah, so we all know that the current situation worldwide is totally uncertain. And that's why, more than ever, the travel agencies, as Amarok Adventures, that is ourselves here in Iceland, and all the service providers in the Faroe Islands, we are being quite more flexible this year. So because of this, we have decided to offer a risk-free reservation before March 31st. So no payments required before that date. The deposit of the 30% of the total price wouldn't be necessary to be paid until the 1st of April if the groups get confirmed. What happens in case there's some major force that doesn't allow the people to travel to the Faroe Islands because of, for example, COVID-19, or if borders are closed or whatever? In case we need to cancel the group, the price would be 100% refundable. okay, excluding the cancellation fees of the service providers that are not super high, but would be 100% refundable at the end. Just to let you know, because I know that some people, you are in countries that the COVID-19 is not the best friend right now, of course, and you are not on the best situation. The Faroe Islands is one of the first COVID-free countries in the world, not just in Europe, just all around the world. As you can imagine, the country wishes to keep it in this way. So that's why there are currently some restrictions, and maybe there are some restrictions before summer, but it's completely uncertain right now. Thank you, everyone, and I hope to see most of you in the Faroe Islands. And I have to say a big thank you to Frank for joining us today. I really appreciate you that you came to the webinar for talking about this. And of course, big thanks also to 57 Hours and to Condé Nast Traveler for promoting the trip and for making this webinar happening.